Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Matilda Jarnek. I work with UNHCR and I also co-chair the Cash Working Group. So on behalf of the Cash Working Group, ULearn and the Bank of Uganda, we're happy to have you here today for the launch of the financial literacy training minimum standards. Oof, that's really a mouthful. I think I'm going to call them the minimum standards from now. So I see that we have an exciting crowd. It's a very diverse crowd. We have representatives from the humanitarian community, we have commercial banks, we have the Bank of Uganda, we have telecom companies. So that's really exciting for the discussions here today. So I'm going just to walk you through the agenda, as that usually happens. So we will start by having a few opening remarks. We have an interesting lineup. We have representatives from the Bank of Uganda, from UK Aid, from UNHCR and from WFP. Thereafter, we're going to have a presentation on the financial literacy minimum standards. What are they actually? And this is going to be WFP and PHB who will be presenting this to us. Thereafter, we will have breakfast and you can mingle and network. And then we come to the core of this event, which is the roundtable discussion, which is when we're going to find out now what, okay, we're celebrating that we reached this far, we have the minimum standards, but how are we now going to take that forward and make sure that that is implemented? This is going to be an interesting discussion with a range of different actors. And then we will have questions and answers, and thereafter we will close, and then you can eat again and mingle and network. So I'm going to hand over to Marike, who is the learning manager of the learning hub of ULearn. And she's going to take you through some of the housekeeping for today. So over to you, Marike.
Thanks a lot, Matilda. That was a mouthful. Yes, so before we get started, I just wanted to flag a few housekeeping points. So as Matilda already mentioned, we have a lot of people online, so also welcome to all the people online, and the people in the room, kindly be mindful of that. We have a question session at the end of the morning. This means that for most of the morning there won't be a moment to ask your questions, but we've put question forms in the center of the table. Please fill this out as your questions are coming up, and then we'll have Karen, who's standing over there, walking around collecting them and typing them in, so that at the end of the morning, when we have the question and answer session, we'll be able to select some of those questions for answering by either the panelists or the presenters of the session where the minimum standards are presented, or anyone else in the room. Also, the people online will be able to ask questions, so please, if you have a question online, drop it in the chat box. Don't forget to add your name and your organization, but because we will ask you to speak up and ask your question. Same for the people in the room. Please do note down who the question is from and who it's addressed to, so that we can invite you to ask your question during the Q&A session. So I think, yes, there are resources in the room that have been handed out. Of course, also the minimum standards themselves. Online, Julie will be dropping those in the chat box. There's also a number of other resources that will be shared. So I think we can get started with the main part of the event. Matilda, back over to you.
Okay, so we'll go into the opening remarks, and sorry to ambush you a bit, McKay. You just arrived just in time for the opening remarks. So I will introduce to you Mr. Makay Omo, who is the Director of the National Payment Systems from the Bank of Uganda. And he's going to give some opening remarks. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're having a rough week, very busy, and many competing activities. And I'm sorry that the Deputy Governor was not able to come because of other commitments, and he had not been in town, so he just returned. But because of the spirit of collaboration, I was also almost failing to be here, but I'm happy that I'm here. Very good morning, and a warm welcome to all of you who have turned up this morning. We are honored to be here to join you the cash working group. And of course, like I said, we emphasize collaborations and this training which has been developed jointly by Bank of Uganda and the Interagency Cash Working Group. These standards are deeply rooted in the financial literacy strategy, which was launched in 2013 at national level. So at the onset, I want to thank the team that participated in developing these standards. The ultimate goal is financial inclusion, and indeed, not to leave anyone behind in this new era where financial inclusion has proved itself to drive economies to achieve sustainable development. So this Bank of Uganda flagship program, Financial Literacy Training of Trainers, you are aware, it remains one of the major ways of imparting knowledge to train the population on basic financial literacy and prepare them. Like I said, the starting point is financial literacy. Even if you are given money when you are not financially literate, you may not be able to manage it. To date, we have trained over 2,000 trainers across the country and approximately 80 districts who can, and also translating to like 33 local languages in Uganda. We have also partnered again with financial development partners to provide TOT programs for refugees. I was privileged to visit the one in Western Uganda. It opened my mind about the life of a refugee. It has to create there have to be some opportunities to be able to lead a normal life, even though you're in a camp kind of environment. And so we saw economic activities thriving in that place. People are busy. They wake up normally like any other people. Ugandans going to work and pursue their daily aspects of life. So to improve strategic implementation of financial literacy activities, Bank of Uganda conducted a financial capability survey, and the results showed that Kigesi and Karamoja regions are the lowest financial literacy capability, which was below the national average of 50.4%. So we continue to do trainings in these regions, and we also focus on training of commercial officers, farmers association, district leaders, and all this is aimed at enhancing financial literacy. This and many other interventions have been taken and ultimately looking at improving the economic wellness of Ugandans. But we want to emphasize the need for collaboration, not just with other regulators, but also regulated or licensed institutions, public and private partnerships, and development partners. And this will help us have a meaningful and impact on lifting not just the average Ugandan, but even those that are forcibly displaced that we live with. So this minimum standards for financial literacy that we are launching today, this is a commendable thing, and it goes a long way in articulating and putting in practice this syllabus which we developed, looking at 8 semantic areas. So the main objective is to ensure consistent, coherent, and equitable financial literacy training across the country, including displaced persons. The minimum standards, as you're aware, have been developed to facilitate delivery of financial literacy training, and it encourages diversity using harmonized what we call standards now, but focusing on key semantic areas. So as we celebrate this milestone achievement here today, we need not stop here. There are still more challenges ahead. We must focus on effective implementation of these standards and monitoring and tracking progress. we thank government for the open policy for forcibly displaced people who are able to work, do economic activities. They can open bank accounts. They can also get mobile money accounts. And we want to thank the humanitarian assistance that they receive. This group is highly vulnerable. Nobody chooses to be displaced in this country. So the bank is committed that this collaboration that we're chatting together with the humanitarian factors will go a long way to transform the lives of these forcibly displaced people. And I want to thank the donor community, not just for presence, but for the real practical programs that are being delivered to help these people. We now have the second National Financial Inclusion Strategy 2023-28, which will be launched next week, 30th November. We will encourage all of you to participate or attend, either physically or virtually. We are still looking at reducing financial exclusion barriers, depending on broadening the use of high quality and affordable financial services and products, strengthening consumer protection and empowerment, developing an inclusive green finance market, and promoting gender inclusive finance. But when we look at the numbers, Uganda has made very good dimensions in terms of access to financial services. And what we want to focus more in this revised strategy is usage aspects of financial inclusion and the more use cases in different sectors of the economy. I've seen that the lot has gone into health and insurance. Health insurance, there's still a lot out there. Public transport is still a big challenge. And so use cases is going to be a priority. You know that from the recent Findex, we have achieved at least 66% of somebody having a regulated account, a mobile money account or a bank account. And this is 10% above the sub-Saharan average. Our Bank of Uganda data that we collect, supply side data indicates that we're now at 85% people having adults having at least an account in a licensed, a regulated or formal financial service. Mobile money has been recognized as a formal channel for savings, and a lot of incentives have been put in, including paying interest on mobile money balances, and also securing that money that you can never lose your money. Even if your account gets dormant, the money remains protected. So this is to encourage people to use mobile money, but we need to focus more on use cases away from cash in and cash out. So that's the strategy. We still have a challenge to get through these low levels of financial literacy in the country. And we will then focus on these other underserved segments, including women, refugees, youth, micro and small, medium enterprises, rural dwellers, forcibly displaced people, and people with disabilities. Well, in a day like this one, it would be good to leave you with a quote, and this is coming from Napoleon Hill, which says, and I'll read it. It's literally true that you can succeed best and quickest by helping others to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, our ultimate goal is socio-economic transformation, changing Uganda to a money economy. And to this effect, our Bank of Uganda mission was revised to say we look at price stability, sound financial systems, but ultimately in support of socio-economic transformation. We must therefore collaborate with all partners in this area so that everybody becomes financially included, resilient to shocks, and can enjoy good health and general well-being. So we look forward to celebrating the milestone being launched today that we have developed together. I thank you for listening and wish you good deliberations in the rest of the program.
So I retained a few points. So first of all, we look forward to the launch of the new financial inclusion strategy that will be launched next week, I hear. So that's really a great achievement. And also we look forward to, the Bank of Uganda's commitment to including refugees therein. And of course, the collaboration, that's really key. So, and we also hope that, Uganda is ahead. If you compare to Sub-Saharan Africa, we hope that will also have a spillover on refugees. So that's great to hear. Now I'm going to hand over to our next speaker. This is going to be Rebecca Bell. She is the Humanitarian and Human Development Team Leader with UK-AID. And UK-AID has been supporting this process to develop the financial literacy minimum standards all along. So the floor is yours, Rebecca, please.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, and all protocols reserved. So, as has been said, so I'm the head of the Humanitarian and Human Development team at the British High Commission here in Kampala. So I'm honoured to join you today on behalf of the UK as we celebrate this significant milestone in our commitment to empowering refugees and host communities through financial literacy. I'd like to thank the Bank of Uganda, the Cash Working Group, and ULEARN for organising this event to mark this important achievement. So research last year showed that 40% of refugee heads of households in Uganda have no formal education. Taking on debt is very common, and around 75% of refugees keep money at home or with a local saving association rather than with a formal financial institution. There are many stats which point to numerous challenges when it comes to financial inclusion. Undoubtedly, financial literacy is a key driver of economic empowerment. And by equipping people with the knowledge and skills to manage their finances, we are investing in their future and promoting sustainable development. However, with a raft of financial literacy training implementers, we are aware of a considerable mix of approaches and methodologies across different providers. For this reason, the initiative to set minimum standards is one that stands to deliver great benefits as we consider the fundamental question: what are the core content and practices necessary to deliver a quality financial literacy training? Our aim is to provide refugees and host communities in Uganda with the necessary tools to navigate and contribute to their financial well-being, fostering self-sufficiency and resilience to shocks. And for this to be truly effective and consistent, a financial literacy standard is necessary. As the UK, it's extremely important for us to invest in programming and relationships that respond to the government of Uganda's priorities and that align with key needs within the refugee response. We're delighted that ULEARN is operating in such a collaborative manner and able to produce work of quality and relevance alongside other partners to the extent that it is being adopted by the central bank. So it's with great pleasure, therefore, that we witness the adoption and launch of these minimum standards by the Bank of Uganda. So to conclude, let us acknowledge the potential impact of this initiative on the lives of refugees in Uganda. The standards not only provide a framework for effective financial education, but also serve as a bridge, connecting refugees to the broader financial ecosystem, enabling increased understanding and trust of the financial sector. This inclusivity within the financial ecosystem is fundamental to building stronger, more resilient communities, and I extend my gratitude to the Bank of Uganda for embracing these standards and for their dedication to promoting financial literacy throughout refugee hosting districts. So let us look forward to the positive transformations these standards will bring to the lives of refugees and Ugandans. The launch today marks not just the culmination of a project, but the beginning of a journey towards more financially empowered and self-sufficient communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. So just a few points that I retained. So of course, the minimum standards is not only a way to ensure quality of these trainings, but also a bridge for people to actually access the financial ecosystem. and to have more confidence and trust in the system. So going now to hand over to the next speaker. This is Jason Heps, the Deputy Representative of UNHCR. And as some of you might know, UNHCR chairs or co-chairs the Cash Working Group since, well, it's been about a year now. But that's that's the capacity in which you are here, of course, and UNHCR as the coordinator of the refugee response. So over to you, Jason.
Good morning, Director of National Payment Systems at the Bank of Uganda, members of the Diplomatic Corps, UN colleagues, partners from government, NGOs, the private sector, and other colleagues. As the co-chair and coordinating organization of the Cash Working Group, and Matilda being the working force there from UNHCR on that with our colleague Stephen. We at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Uganda would like to extend a big thank you to the Bank of Uganda for your support in the development of the financial literacy training minimum standards. Thank you to the core technical team of the Cash Working Group tasked with the development of the minimum standards. That includes the World Food Programme, the Finnish Refugee Council, the World Bank, AVSI Foundation, PHB Consultancy, and the Bank of Uganda. To ULearn for the support throughout the process and hosting us, and to UK Aid for the resources and support to make this happen. Before I go into my more formal remarks, I just would like all of us to reflect. I was reflecting as we received this, how did we become financially literate ourselves, and how this is probably different than what we are promulgating here today. I was thinking my parents took me to a bank when I was, I think, 5 years old or something, and said, here, you're gonna open, here's a book for you. And the bank gave me a stuffed animal that was their symbol, and they gave me, I don't know, a bunch of pennies and quarters to put in, and dimes to put in the bank. And then I started learning and taking me to the bank. So financially literate family members that were there for me and teaching me how to do it. Some of you may not have had that. Maybe you went, studied, and did it more formally or informally. Here, this is to relate to a population that some of them do have, are fortunate enough to have these family members and the resources to put the pennies and quarters. Most of them are struggling to have enough of those pennies and quarters to be able to, or shillings, to be able to get some food together, and focusing on that. And so it's really important that we have this mechanism to help this population, refugee population, or those most in need and the more vulnerable that don't have that formal support. Now coming back to my more formal notes, with apologies. So since the Cash Working Group was established in 2016, it has been advancing financial inclusion for refugees. The group is a well-established platform bringing together humanitarian actors, financial service providers, donors, fintech, and others, many of whom are present here today. And something we are trying to take advantage of is the highly conducive environment in Uganda for financial inclusion. Refugees can access bank accounts, refugees can access mobile money accounts, they can work, they have the right to run businesses. However, as I said, financial literacy remains one of the major obstacles and barriers right now. Research in Uganda has shown that communities, and especially women, call for more support and training on financial literacy. This would increase their knowledge, their skills, their confidence to manage a financial situation responsibly. This motivated the Cash Working Group on the minimum standards, which will serve as a tool to reach a broader population, improving the quality and coordination of these trainings. And while these trainings can empower individuals to make more informed choices about their finances, more must be done to link trained persons, women and men, to livelihoods opportunities and other supporting interventions that can accelerate the financial inclusion. So this is one step in that pathway. The Cash Working Group strategy and roadmap for the next 3 years, a harmonized cash approach, includes a component on training on financial literacy. The Livelihoods and Resilience Working Group, which UNHCR also co-chairs, is redoubling efforts to link refugees and hosts with the support of all the membership and their interventions to dignified economic opportunities. So today's launch is an important step in both working groups' work. I would also like to take the time to commend the Bank of Uganda on its new national strategy on financial inclusion, of which financial literacy is an integral part. The realities faced by the humanitarian community with dwindling resources, refugees facing years and years of time in exile, and the lack of solutions and safety required for refugees to have a dignified return to their homes requires a massive shift that we are currently going through in the humanitarian community here in Uganda. Integration in national systems here is more important than ever, and one element is ensuring inclusion in the national strategy on financial inclusion. And UNHCR can be counted on as a trusted partner in that journey. In conclusion, this is a very challenging time, but a very exciting time where we must take advantage of every opportunity, including the new relationships and networks forming between actors which many of us whom in the past we haven't worked together, we wouldn't have thought we would ever be working together or sitting together in this room. And so building that network, building that relationship, and ensuring that we together can speak the same language and advance the financial inclusion agenda. The minimum standards launched today presents a very concrete example of doing so. So thank you again for your support and for your future collaboration.
Thank you, Jason. So you underlined the shift that we are currently going through as a humanitarian community, the shift from humanitarian aid reliance to self-reliance, and also the shift in forming these new relationships with actors that would not conventionally collaborate. So I think this is a testament to that we have this wide range of actors here in the room today, and especially online. I'm going now to hand over to our last speaker for the opening remarks, Geneviève Chikwan, who is the head of program for WFP, and WFP also being the biggest implementer of cash assistance programs for refugees, and also they were a leading agency for the development of the minimum standards. So during the time of developing the minimum standards, WFP was also the chair of the cash working group, and hence played a very big role there. So over to you, Geneviève.
Yeah, the French name. Thank you, Matilda. You say my name perfectly well. So I'm Geneviève. I'm the head of program for WFP, representative of the Bank of Uganda, of the UN, of UK, of ULearned, and distinguished guests from the private sector and other organizations. Good morning. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you at the launch of the minimum standard for financial literacy training. This initiative marks a significant milestone for our collective effort to empower refugee and host community with the knowledge and skill necessary to make informed financial decisions and improve their financial resilience, and support them towards financial inclusion, as Jason mentioned, self-reliance. As we discussed, WFP is currently delivering various program interventions, such as general food and nutrition assistance, social protection, livelihood and resilience, as well as the agriculture market support. This in refugee and host community. Across our general and food nutrition assistance, we are providing food and cash to 1.3 million refugees in 13 settlements. These ones receive this assistance in kind of food. As it is now, 61% of our portfolio is for cash delivery, and we aim to increase that to 75% in 2024. Currently, that means we contribute to the Uganda financial sector through the regular monthly cash transfer provided over 800 refugees. of which 440,000 refugee and over 13,000 community members have already been trained by WFP in financial literacy. So for us, the goal is to equip the participant with the knowledge and access to financial services, as well as make them informed decisions to smartly use their cash. We plan to continue effort together with our partner in 2004 and beyond. So for us, it's therefore with a really great joy that we have now this financial literacy minimum standard, so endorsed by the Bank of Uganda, that is launched today. This will help us to ensure that we have an harmonized approach to deliver financial literacy training and contribute greatly towards a bigger outcome of financial inclusion and empowerment. On behalf of WFP, I'd like to thank also the Financial Literacy Core team of the Cash Working Group and the Bank of Uganda for supporting the development of this minimum financial literacy training standard. We really also appreciate that the government and Bank of Uganda is spearheading the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, which will be launched next week. This will play a significant role in ensuring a common approach to financial literacy and financial inclusion across all actors. We applaud the contribution of the donor community, UK Aid, and we also call on the private sector colleagues to invest more in strengthening financial civet in more remote areas. I'm happy to see Airtel with us today. This is going to be very important for ensuring that financial inclusion is gone to the last mile. Again, I'd like to thank you, all the people to be here, and like everyone else here, WFP firmly believe that financial literacy and financial inclusion is a critical core element towards refugee and self-reliance. Thank you all.
Thank you, Geneviève. So 61% of WFP's cash beneficiaries currently receive that as cash, with an aim to scale that up to 75 in the year to come, which means that we have that as an entry point. These people already have some kind of basis that we can build on. They've been trained on financial literacy. They have access to bank accounts or mobile money accounts eventually, and this is really something that we should tap into. So now, as you said, Geneviève, we want to go into the presentation and eventually into the discussion. So I'm going to hand back over to Marike, who is going to, I don't know what you're going to say.
Thanks, Matilda. No worries. I was going to remind everyone that there are question forms on your table, just in case you have a question that you'd like to ask during the Q&A session. And then I would like to just say that we're going into the presentation now. We're going to take a look at the actual minimum standards and what is in there. But before we do that, I just want to flag to the core team members, the financial literacy training core team members from the Cash Working Group that were really instrumental and fundamental in developing these. It was a long process, and Frances will talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but it started in 2021. And so I'm proud to say that a lot of these people are in the room with us today, so it's really great. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to AFC, John Baptiste over there, PHB, Francis over there. Please stand up. I don't know if Scovia is here from FRC. I know Delia from World Bank couldn't make it last minute. There's, of course, Maggie from WFP. And also, if all is well, we have the Cash Working Group chair at that time, Eunice Mwende, online. Eunice was with WFP at the time and really the driving force of the whole process from start to finish. Eunice, are you there?
Indeed, I am. Thank you very much.
I can hear her. Hi, Eunice. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marike. Thank you, everybody who has managed to be part of this beautiful process today. What an honor. What a big honor for all of us who really put in a little bit of effort to make sure that the financial literacy minimum standards are finally what we can see today. Thank you also to WFP and to UNHCR and to ULAN to invite me to really crown something that we started together and something that we actually didn't see how it's going to go. We just had hope and faith that we were working on something that would actually make a difference for the vulnerable population, the last mile community that we are serving, And it's such a great honor to see that this has actually come to fruition. I think all of you, wherever you are, you deserve a big clap. Now that I have the mic and I have the privilege of just having 1 minute to thank all of you that participated in this. One of the key things that I learned out of this process is to use the recommendations that came from the learning processes. The financial literacy minimum standards actually came from discussions and from learning processes that were led by ULAN. So we took it up and through the cash working group led by WFP at the time, when I was the cash working group lead, we formed the core team of the minimum standards, minimum financial literacy standards. And it's just such a big honor to have AFC, World Bank, Bank of Uganda, PHB, FRC, and as well as ULAN and WFP that participated, gave in their time. Sometimes it didn't look viable, but I'm very glad that this has actually come to take shape. It could not take shape if we did not have progressive government support and policies. And so I just want to express my sincere appreciation to the Bank of participated in the process of coming up with the minimum standards, but they also visited Nakivale to understand. Director McKay, who is part of the process today, visited Nakivale together with others from the Bank of Uganda to really understand what are the challenges that refugees were going through and how we could make a difference. One of the key things that also facilitated this process is the financial support from our donors. And I want to also appreciate UK Aid for always being very supportive. But most of all, to UNHCR and WFP and to ULAN for having a progressive environment where all the lessons that were learned and all the recommendations could actually be put in place. Financial literacy is not just an activity, it is a bridge to financial inclusion. And you being part of this process today shows the commitment you have to make this a reality. And so from wherever I am, I continue to advance and to admire the work that is being done in Uganda, but also to participate in my own small way to continue to bring financial inclusion for displaced communities. I wish you the best today as you launch this process and as you culminate to a process that will be the beginning of a process for refugees to really be fully financially included. Thank you for inviting me and for recognizing the amazing work that we did together with the team that we worked together. Over to and back to you, Marike. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eunice. It was I'm very happy you were able to join us online today. It makes me feel like we've come full circle. So now, I think without further ado, let's take a look at these minimum standards that we've been talking about for over half an hour now. Francis, would you do us the honor to kick us off, and then Margaret will continue. Thanks.
Okay, good morning, everyone, all representatives and all protocol observed. I'll just take a deep dive into the financial literacy minimum standards, and I'll basically start with the objectives. So the objectives really are to create a level of content that has very good quality, yeah? So these are some of the issues that we actually outlined when we were discussing with the core working group. And we were looking at consistency. A lot came out from the learning review, to harmonize different areas for the different actors that were participating in financial literacy trainings in the refugee settlements. Also, what we really looked at was maximizing the impact for the refugee, yeah? So this was very key and very core to a number of issues that were actually raised by the different practitioners that happened to participate. I'll go very quickly to also look at the process that we undertook. So in March 2021, and like has been highlighted, the cash working group through learning review highlighted financial literacy training as one of the areas that needed to be harmonized That was what actually came out of the review. And you can see it took a bit of time from March 2021 to January 2022. That is when the core team was actually formed. And you have already seen the organizations that actually participated here, quite a variety of different actors in this space. And so with the team formed, we decided to dive into looking at the different practitioners, but also having consultative efforts in the different areas. We're able to hold workshops in Mbarara, looking at the Southwest region and having everyone really participate and discuss this learning brief that actually had come out of this review. And we were also able to go up north to the Northwest in Arua to also have those different practitioners come in and also share and discuss this review. And we're able to form together minimum standards, and that is when we actually had this draft come out and formed. We were also able to come back to Kampala after those 2 workshops and have another workshop with the national team and level and be able to finally review and finalize this draft of the minimum standards. And that's what you'll see was actually made available in September of 2022. So I'm happy to say that today, like you can see, October, November, Bank of Uganda has actually adopted and is able to share and launch this. Thank you all. Over to Maggie.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to you all. Once again, my name is Margaret Katutu. I work for WFP, and as colleagues already mentioned, WFP was part of the team that really took lead in coming up with the minimum standards for financial literacy, and I'm just going to continue the presentation. So the financial literacy minimum standards are divided into 4 groups. And actually to note here that this is not the, Bank of Uganda has a comprehensive financial literacy strategy that all partners are encouraged to adopt and use. So these are just basically minimum standards that we came up with, as Francis already mentioned. One of the reasons as to why we had this is because there were so many partners in the refugee setting conducting financial literacy trainings, and there was no way of measuring, or there was no guidance in regards to the standards. So these are the standards that we have, and I'm going to actually take you into details of what they are. But we have a standard around identification and targeting of beneficiaries. What are those minimum standards that you have to consider? Then around the trainers, who should conduct the trainings, and then training and planning delivery, the curriculum, certification, who qualifies to get this, and then the monitoring and evaluation. So I'm going to take you into details of this. So the first standard that we set is around identification and targeting of participants. So we realized, of course, different partners had different ways of targeting, and if we had to have harmonized content and quality delivered to intended beneficiaries, we also had to have a harmonization around identification and targeting. So one of the key things that we consider here is these minimum standards are focused on the refugee setting. So that's why you see these should be people belonging to the refugee community, ideally meaning that they should be refugees. And then they should be over the age of 18 years. Of course, we have to align with the government, but there is consideration knowing that we have child-headed households in the refugee setting, especially between the age of 16 and above. And these can only be trained upon consent from a guardian or if there is a protection assessment that qualifies them to be trained. So in the refugee setting, because of the dynamics in terms of having child-headed households and people with special needs, then we can put into consideration that group. But the reason that's why we zeroed down on 18 years, because these are people who can legally open either bank accounts or own SIM cards and have some access to some cash or that they can use to build on. Then the other one is they should also be economically active, because financial literacy, when you look at the modules entailed in the whole strategy, you'll find some modules looking at investment and how do you plan, how do you do some savings. So if you have to do all that, then you should be economically active, that you're able to do some work and bring in some money. Then the other one, at least you should be in a position of decision making, because one of the challenges we are facing in the refugee setting is power dynamics at the household level. So that, we needed to have at least harmonization that people who make decisions are actually taken on for these trainings. Then common language, because we understand we have refugees coming from different countries, and if you have to deliver a quality training, you need to have at least refugees grouped in according to the languages that they speak, and according to also the location. The location is because it's easy for the trainers to access them, and participants do not have to walk long distances going for the training, because we have to be mindful of other economic activities that they do. Then the trainers, who are the trainers for this? So here we still align with the Bank of Uganda strategy, and we use the master trainer approach. The master trainers, as the Bank of Uganda has already mentioned, these are trained by Bank of Uganda. And they are empowered or equipped with skills to also do training of trainers. So from the master trainers, we have training of trainers who are the certified trainers that are at the level of sub-counties in the host community that can also cascade the knowledge down to the community-based trainers. So in the refugee setting, you'll find the community-based trainers will be able now to carry out the trainings, the actual trainings in the community. So still these standards align with those, and also we try to specify the qualifications. One of them, someone to qualify in any of these categories, there should be a good understanding of financial literacy, the different topics and cross-cutting, especially around gender, because there's need for consideration of inclusion, both men and women, looking at the power dynamics, especially at the household level. Then they should have, they should be able to use digital technology. And here we are looking at if we have to slot in digital literacy in the financial literacy trainings, or if they have to administer these trainings using different methodologies, including either using tabs or something. Then they should be able to speak some English and also the local language, because most of the trainings are delivered in the local language. Then commit to mentorship, because as you understand, most of the target groups are adults, so there's need to, instead of being a teacher, you need to go beyond that and be a mentor as well, for people to really have to change their attitude towards financial management. The other one is there should be thorough reference checks to make sure that the trainer, especially the community-based trainers, have good reputation in the community, because for you to conduct these trainings, you need to be believed in by the people. So if you don't have a good reputation, for example, if you're a thief, then you can't do that trainings because people won't believe in you. Yeah. Then training planning and delivery. For example, the minimum standards is you have to choose a good location for the trainings. Take an example, you are in a refugee settlement, let me use maybe Naki Valley, and then you want to choose a location for your training. Choose a location that is accessible by both people with disabilities. The elderly, it should be a short distance that they can walk to that location. So your location should take into consideration the different categories of people that you're going to train. Then the other one is you should select participants carefully. For example, most organizations, maybe to also note that these minimum standards, different organizations have different project objectives. So we request that you align with these minimum standards, keeping into consideration the project objectives. So these are minimum standards that have to be followed. So now, when you are selecting participants, also look at their education level, because you'll need to do a pre-test to get to know their knowledge levels in terms of financial literacy and do the grouping. But also you'll need to, the way the adults, for example, understand is not the same way the youth would easily understand the message that you're delivering. So you try to group them that way, so that at the end of it all, they're able to get the desired knowledge from these trainings. The other one is around adapt the content. So there are different contexts, especially for the different refugee settlements that we have. We host different refugees. And so the content should be tailored to the context. If you're training, use examples, for example, use examples from the community that you're training. Contextualize it, because if you provide an example, maybe of a person in Kampala, someone will tailor it to maybe if you're setting saving goals and you're using examples of people in Kampala, a refugee will say, I think it's for people living in Kampala. So it has to be adapted to the local context. The other one is you have to plan the duration. The duration, as per the minimum standards, we are talking of between 1 to 2 hours per session and a maximum of 4 hours per week. So we are keeping into consideration of that these refugees have, they're adults, they have other responsibilities, and if they have to really give you time, you need to take less of their time. That is one. Then the other one, you need to agree with them the preferred time for their training. After grouping them, you also agree on the preferred time, because they will tell you, for us, we need you to train us in the evening, maybe starting at 3. So you should be able to adjust to that. You shouldn't schedule them and you say, this is the schedule, you should always come here at 11, but it should be, you should plan the duration with the participants. Then training delivery, actual trainings, you need to pair to conduct in-person trainings. And this is because this is kind of adult learning and people understand when you are physically there with them. So you need to have them gathered and take them through their trainings. Then the other one, you have to tailor the methodologies. After studying the type of people or the category of people that you're going to train, also identify the method that you're going to use. Are you going to use role play? Are you going to use lecture method, depending on the categories and the knowledge levels of the participants? So there is need to, and the minimum standards actually state the different options that one can use. Then you also need to do a post-training. So a post-training is actually helps to get to know that, yes, this is the journey we've taken. We started maybe when the beneficiaries averagely, their knowledge level was at 50, and by the time of the training, they are at this level. Then you can attribute your contribution, but also to study the different changes in behaviors and attitude. So these are modules that we highlighted in the minimum standards that actually have to be covered if you have to qualify one as financially trained. The challenge was before, and that's why during the development of this content, we agreed that let's have these modules all displayed here so that the trainers and implementers can get to know. The reason was someone trains beneficiaries for 1 day and is reporting that these have been trained. Another one trains for 1 week, and the other one trains for maybe 3 months. So we needed to at least agree on the content and the modules that have to be covered if you have to qualify target beneficiaries as trained. One, there's a module around Introduction to Financial Literacy, which really looks at the importance of financial literacy, the desired behaviors. Then the other one is around personal financial management, how to use your money, how do you budget, how do you track your expenditure. So all that is embedded in that module. Then the other one is savings. What are savings? How do you set your goals? All that is embedded in this module, and it is clearly illustrated in the minimum standards in details. We are just giving you key highlights here. Then we also have to take these beneficiaries or refugees through loan management. What are the different options available? Why should you acquire a loan? How do you pay your debt burden? How loan management generally. So this is also, it also has some content under it that has to be covered. Then we have investment that these refugees have to know about. What are the investment options? What would be your source of funding? Yeah, so that's also a module embedded in there. And then insurance as well. How do you plan the unforeseen risks, especially in regards to health and property? So all those are included. Then we have planning at old age and retirement. How do you continue sustaining your financial flow even throughout your old age? And lastly, the financial service providers. What are the different financial products available? What are the financing options available? So all these modules are embedded in the curriculum, and we've there are those called basic, especially for those implementers that would really don't want to take beneficiary all through this. We have something that you can base on to say at least we have trained this, and we have also those that you can say we went ahead and took them through all the modules, and now we can qualify them as this. So you'll also be seeing in the certification below on how you qualify. So actually all these are included in the Bank of Uganda Financial Literacy Strategy and the guidance for trainers as well. So we also felt that we needed to define the minimum standards for certifying one as trained. So for the participants, they should have attended 80% of the trainings for them to be qualified. And the trainers should register participants as they come in to start their trainings or the training sessions, and also roll call before, at the end of the session, because some can come and register and then go away. So attendance is very key, and for one to be qualified, you have to at least have attended by up to 80% of the course. Then for the trainers, the community-based trainers, for them to receive certificates, for them to be community-based trainers, they should have been taken through all the modules, and their certificates should specify what modules they've been trained in, which organization trained them, as well as the participant numbers. Because as you know, in the refugee setting, we have different implementers. If I want to take you on as a community-based trainer, I need to also see what are those modules that you've been taken through, that you have skills in. So that's it. And all these are to ensure that the content and quality of financial literacy is actually harmonized. So these minimum standards, what's the desired change if we have them implemented by the different partners? One of the indicators is that we shall see participants at least showing increased capacity to use their financial services. Of course, it's aligning with the overall goal of financial literacy that has been mentioned by many presenters, but this is the overall impact, and at outcome level, We shall be able to measure participants that are able to come up with spending plans, they use digital financial tools, have achieved their saving goals, ability to mitigate risks, and capacity to share financial knowledge. That then we shall measure our contribution in that way. Then the other one, at output level, we shall measure those beneficiaries that have been certified, certified and have gone through the pre-test and post-test, and the ratings are actually good. So that's at output level. That's all from me, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Margaret. Great to have a quick overview of those minimum standards. That's the topic of our discussions this morning. So it's great to see also that we have almost 90 people online at the moment. We will now be quickly going into a break, but please do keep those questions coming. I'm seeing they're coming in the chat box online and as well as on the forums here. I'm sure that if you've been taken through the minimum standards, you might have a few questions, and please, use that opportunity of having the people in the room that were part of that process and that can answer some of the questions you may have. We are going to have the panel discussion, which I'm really looking forward to, and then we'll have a question and answer session to answer some of your questions. Thank you very much.
I began my career at Mednet. At that time, it's now Vision Finance. I was a credit officer, and my job was to train people in financial literacy. I later moved to Barclays Bank as a credit officer before switching to communication, an interesting switch. But even there, I did train people in financial literacy. But many times I questioned my financial choices. So this is a very interesting topic, important for the refugees, but also important for us. I'll introduce myself again. Matilda did a good job. My name is Rachel Kentenyinji. In my language, that means many cows. I work with UNCDF as a communications specialist. To break down this panel, we have an interesting lineup of panelists that I will invite shortly. But before I do that, we had Margaret and Francis, who have all had a pleasure to work with, really break down these minimum standards. And for me, I know many of us in the room and those joining online have had an opportunity to train people in financial literacy. And so you'll appreciate that we really need these standards, right? And so we have an opportunity to ask questions, but that will be later. And Matilda will guide us through that session. But for now, I'll invite the panelists in no particular order. I'll start with ICANN's Mark Bansar. He's the head of crisis response at WFP. Welcome. We have Millie Nancy Lagu, who is a Refugee Welfare Council chairperson for Kiriandongo Settlement. We also have John Baptist, HLM. He said he likes to be called Baptist because there are so many Johns. He is a livelihoods advisor at AVSI. And we heard that he was among the people that developed these standards. So we are listening from the horse's mouth. And last but definitely not least, a man that needs no introduction in this space. Many of you have worked with him. Mr. Alex Ochan, the head of financial inclusion at Bank of Uganda. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you also reflected on your financial literacy journey. If you can take a minute and tell us, what did you feel when the head of UNHCR was sharing his experience? In a minute, as you also introduce yourself. Thank you.
Response for WFP. Just to move to the informal side, like Jason had said earlier on, before coming back to the formal, when did I begin or even start the whole financial journey, even before coming to the literacy? I think mine was quite way older in life, so you must be very fortunate, Jason, to have started at 5. It was when I was about completing university. So you could imagine how old I might have been at the time. I think this was when I felt the need to become financially literate, not literate in the sense of knowing how to manage money and everything, but to have a bank account. Because it dawned on me that, okay, you are going to go into the job market, how do you get paid? Because at the time, Ghana had also transitioned from tabletop or cash-in-hand payments for salaried workers. So this was what led me into opening an account for the very first time before beginning to learn more about becoming financially literate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Millie, over to you. Just really in a sentence, introduce yourself and give us a sentence on your financial literacy journey.
Thank you so much, members of the AUKUS House. My name is Millie Nancy Lagu. I'm a REF member, but based in Kiriandongo Refugee Settlement, in the position of the chairperson for that settlement. My financial literacy stand is low because I learned on the issue of opening bank account when I came to Uganda as a refugee. That was in 2015 when I had a small commitment with the Danish Refugee Council as a social worker, and they needed to pay us through the bank. So I started from there, meaning what comes around goes around. I thought it was the end of the news, but again, it was the beginning of the beginning because I learned many things when I came as a refugee. So it is not only the bad part of the coin, but the other side of the coin is also well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Millie. Very interesting story. And Baptist, in a minute, please, your journey and who you are.
Yeah, thank you. Like Rachel said, my name is John Baptist Achelam. I work for AFSI as the livelihood advisor in Ramwanja Refugee Settlement in a graduating to resilience approach. My journey for financial literacy started right in primary, where I started to do some petty trade. And at that point, I would keep some small money. But before I could use it, I'll tell my father, I have done this and earned so much, and I'm going to do it with this. So because I thought I could not buy anything and without my father getting to know that. But to open an account, I opened in 2004, where I was a trainer, and my first payment could not be given in cash. So they gave me a check, and I could not cash out, so I had to then in UCB open an account. And my connection with financial literacy started way back in 2008, where we were already training in all our livelihood programming in AFSI. Financial literacy has been a component. Thank you.
Thank you. And you, Alex, I'm sure since you work for Bank of Uganda, you must be better than all of us. But
that's an interesting statement. I'm Alex Ochan. I work with the Bank of Uganda as head of financial inclusion. We do three major things. We coordinate and implement a strategy for financial literacy in Uganda. We also coordinate the national financial inclusion strategy. And we promote innovations, especially in payments as a division. And with my colleague, Rita Karunji, she's the one who is directly in charge of financial literacy at the moment. I thought it would be relevant to get to know her as well. When you talk of refugees, I think of internally displaced persons. I come from the north, and when I think about my life when I was still a young person, it could almost equate to what refugees are, except that this time they're out of their countries. I reflect on my life when I was growing up, and I needed to cope up and make ends meet through working to save without being taught, but you needed to make money to meet your scholastic requirements. So my journey in financial literacy, I could reflect back in the early 80s or the late 80s when you could work, moving towards the mid-90s, where I saved to buy my first camera to become a photographer. So I was a photographer at that time, and I was making money to buy my scholastic materials in school. So I think I was self-taught, or circumstances made me do that. Formally, I think I moved it when I joined Bank of Uganda. And I'm glad I'm still in that space now at a more professional level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and shame on me for assuming. That was an interesting journey that you shared. So we'll go right into the discussion, as you already heard about the minimum standards, and I'm going to start with the person right next to me, the head of crisis response, Mr. Aikens. So we know that most refugees in Uganda prefer cash over in-kind assistance. And of course, WFP is the largest provider of this assistance. Over 61% of all families enrolled for food assistance receive this as cash, mainly through bank accounts. And we also understand that WFP aims to increase the number of beneficiaries receiving cash in future. So you incorporate financial literacy training when delivering this assistance. How do you see the minimum standards affecting the implementation of these trainings in your programs? And you can talk about how you see them improving the scale, quality, and reach of your financial literacy training, and of course, supporting your programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we all are probably quite aware, WFP in Uganda runs various program interventions, and one of those has to do with ensuring that crisis-affected people receive support to be able to cater for their food and nutrition needs on a monthly basis. And like the moderator said, we do largely that using cash-based transfers. And it's a deliberate decision because it helps us to be able to move towards the self-reliance that we want refugees to achieve by giving them choice and also ensuring that they become financially included. So generally in our programming as WFP, that deliberate decision to make sure that we have people financially included led to us training over 440,000 refugees and also over 13,000 Ugandan residents. Now, how will the standards that will be launched today be beneficial to our programming? I think generally in the settlements that we work, we do not work in isolation. We work with other partners. And in a setting where there are no structures to govern how people do things, it brings about chaos. Because then also you are not too sure of the quality and standards that people are adhering to in delivering the support that they give to the people that we all serve. So in our looking at the minimum standards that are being launched, we know that it is going to help us a lot in the sense that now that we know there are those standards that we are all going to follow as industry players, it brings about that harmonization. We can be sure that if, for example, AFC goes into a settlement to conduct financial literacy trainings, we can be sure that they are going to follow those minimum standards, of course, leveraging and making sure that their own programmatic objectives are met, but then those minimum standards will be available. Now, what this does for us is that if the BFE goes into the same settlement as a second entrant, we don't need to go back to start the same activity of training people or ensuring that we reinvest in that activity because AFC has done that already. It gives us opportunity to be able to then leverage on what they've done, do a bit of layering, and then be able to scale up quickly our interventions. What that also gives us is that it gives us some savings, which can then be committed to other components of our programming, which otherwise, if we're going straight into beginning the whole implementation ourselves, we would have lost track on. I think additionally, the issue or element of data and information sharing would also be one of the areas where we are going to benefit more from in respect of the financial literacy standards that we are all going to follow. Because, of course, information is going to be readily available, and I'm really hopeful that the cash working group led by UNHCR would be able to collate this information and make it readily available for all of us to leverage in our programming so that it is easier for us to know at what level are people and how much more investments we can make into those activities to make sure that they become financially included and move them towards the mark of becoming self-reliant. We think that for us as WFP, you cannot have people become self-reliant without them being financially included. So this is a journey that we are happy that we will continue to march on, and we are appreciative of the investments that have been made so far to ensure that we have these minimum standards.
Thank you so much, Akins. And it's interesting that you mentioned the importance of really graduating to self-reliance. And when we talked to Millie just the other day, she was really passionate about that. And so, Millie, you are representing your community, and financial literacy really is a bridge to financial inclusion that we hope also will lead us to financial health. Based on what you know from your community and the people that have received financial literacy trainings, what do you say are some of the benefits or like tangible examples they have received from this training?
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Amini Nancy, a REF member representing the refugee fraternity. The number one and the foremost among the beneficiaries, the benefits that I'm seeing in our beneficiaries as persons of concern is the togetherness and the harmony. Remember, when we came, we are people from all walks of life, and whatever brought us out of our different states of origin was war. And among those, or among us, we have people whom we were pointing fingers to. So when we brought in the issue of the financial literacy training, it has no discrimination, and therefore they bring us together as a community that is the refugees, and then they train us. They don't segregate that these ones are coming from this particular area, these ones are coming from this area, so we train them differently, no? So in that, I want to appreciate the partners who are doing that in the various settlements, because they bring us together as refugees, but they don't bring us together as people who are coming from different areas, meaning that that's already inclusion, because that one is already togetherness and harmony, which we are looking for. And then on the other side, it is also a benefit to me. Like after the training, the few who have been trained, they have not been selfish with that ideas. They have imparted also the training onto others, because after the training, most of us are being put in groups. And then in the groups, you'll find that others are not trained, but because they have that interest and they feel they should be part and parcel of that saving groups, the VSLA, they are not refused, but they learn from the ones who have already been trained. So you find that one is also another one, like sharing the knowledge that you have with another colleague. That's one benefit again. And then when you see that training, to me, it is a lifetime asset, because when we were being trained, or when people are being trained, you don't train them that I'm training you, you pick it and use it today, then tomorrow you don't use it. No, you are giving us a lifetime asset, which will help us for life. So whether we stay here or we go back home, because there is no place like home, definitely we will hopefully want to go home, but the knowledge will not remain here because it was trained in Uganda. We shall go with it. So in that, I want to say thank you so much to the partners who are training us. So those are like few of the benefits that we as refugees get from the literacy training that we get, the financial literacy training that we get from the partners who are providing it within the settlement. Yes, and also I want to appreciate the fact that these trainings are continuous, because another partner will come and they will do a survey to know who are these ones who have already been trained. And after the training, what are they doing? So meaning that's already a follow-up and a monitoring. And then when they're doing that, when in case any other gap is identified, they normally try to move around and see how best they can fill up that gap. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Millie. And I really like that you said it's really continuous learning. As you've heard from all our journeys, really, we are all learning. And so I'll move to you, Baptiste. Your graduation to resilience activity, and that is at AFSI, has an important component related to financial literacy. You mentioned that you've trained 500 groups with about 12,000 people to date, and an impressive 70% have, as per your criteria, graduated to some level of self-reliance, right? So the question is, we know that these minimum standards, we have been told it's a living document, it's going to be added to you too. How do you foresee them being updated to reflect new developments, with what frequency, and through what process?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. And to the people hearing us, we at the Cash Working Group realized that different partners, different private sectors are using different manuals or curriculum to do financial literacy. It is going to be a similar way to see that over time, like now that Bank of Uganda is coming up with a new strategy, we should as well need to update this minimum standard. And I would suggest a period of 5 years so that we see the new development coming embedded in the curriculum so that the people we are training in financial literacy get a full package. And this will help in making sure that what is delivered is of quality and the participants get the right content.
Yeah, thank you so much. Alex, I think you should respond to that, share your views. Of course, you're launching the second financial inclusion strategy next week. Congratulations on that. And of course, for the first time, we are excited that refugees have been included as a particular population of interest in this strategy. And so we are looking forward to the launch. But as you respond to maybe what Baptiste has said, you can also take us through the thought process that Bank of Uganda went through leading up to development of this document. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Just to take us a bit back, I think financial literacy in particular, the issue started in Uganda, especially Bank of Uganda, that came out to coordinate in 2013. Prior to that, we were running a financial literacy, financial inclusion project at the bank, recognizing the importance of financial inclusion on the aspects of improving monetary policy, issues around improving credit access. If you bring on board the population that is banking and under their mattresses to the banking sector, that would improve as well the stability of the financial sector. So we started with a project in 2010 based on around 4 areas: data, looking at the importance of data in developing policies, consumer protection, financial literacy, and innovations. At that time, it was mobile money. In 2013, then, we developed the first strategy for financial literacy that was mentioned by our director. Fast forward 2017, we had the first strategy for financial inclusion, and then the literacy strategy expired in 2018. We then had the second one, and in the second one, as the director mentioned earlier on, we looked at special interest groups, and in that we looked at the people with disabilities, digital financial literacy, which is not a special interest group, but we saw it as critical in financial literacy as well. And the third one was refugees. Over time, we've seen the importance of collaboration in bringing on board all these different stakeholders. We realized that all the interventions in the refugee space also include the host communities. So having them on board as a major part of the strategy helps us also implement activities that support the host communities. And of course, I think this time around we consulted widely when we were developing this new strategy for financial inclusion. And over time, we realized that we need to take care of all these other unique categories of the population that we have, including the refugees that are with us here. Meeting their needs would support their resilience, but also independence, and therefore it has a direct impact on government efforts as well. Now back to answering Baptist's suggestion. I would agree with him that the document should be a living document, given the changes that we see. Right now, we are talking about innovations. You've seen issues around digital financial literacy being very core at the moment. And one of the things that Bank of Uganda, Uganda Communications Commission, and UNCDF did last year, if you recall, was to develop a digital financial literacy core message that supports those who may want to train, embed it as part of their training. Can we empower those that we are training around aspects relating to digital financial literacy? And this minimum standards clearly mentions that this would be embedded in the different areas or the different modules that we take our trainers through. I think it's one of the first areas that we could pick up and say, okay, can we then include this core messaging? Instead of reinventing the wheel and developing new one, can we include it as part of the training that we do? The current financial literacy strategy is also expiring soon in 2024. We are beginning to initiate the process of developing a new financial literacy strategy that will be aligned to the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. As stakeholders, can we come together and develop one that also considers all the different interest groups, including refugees? And that would perhaps also impact on the minimum standards. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think one of the things that when such initiatives are rolled out, there's a whole question that comes to mind. So how do we measure the impact of these initiatives? So maybe I can ask this from you, Baptist. What do you think, how do you think we can measure the impact of these standards, even in your work, as you do the trainings, as you work with the refugees? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Measurement of all that we do is very important to see the level of change that we may have caused in the community. At AFC, we start from the training of the people. We want to find out what are their level before you train them. And after the training, how much knowledge have they gained through a pre and post test, which we administer. On a routine monitoring basis, be it weekly, because our financial literacy training is cascaded through a village savings and loan association, and therefore in their meeting is where we do the training. So we capture attendance for the people, and for you to have completed the financial literacy training, you should have attended 75 to 80% of the content so that we can certify you. So that is the first level of measurement. Then on a quarterly basis, we want to see, having trained them, have they any increase in knowledge and skills from the training they have undergone? And we have a vigorous monitoring tool which we administer to the participants. Then on a biannual or annually, we now look at the practice. How many people, how many of the participants have changed in their practice and of the knowledge and skills in financial literacy. So we do a routine monitoring from the first up to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much. I think I will want Mr. Bansa. Did I say your name right? No, I'll just say Aikins. Would you want to add on how we can measure the impact of this financial literacy minimum training standards?
No, thank you. I I think the colleague had interestingly captured most of the key requirements. My only addition on this would just be to say that it would also be important for us to look at the qualitative approaches of measuring and not just the quantitative, in the sense that to what extent are people beginning to live, or practice this knowledge that they've actually received. Are we seeing them going into assessing financial services than before? Are they able to utilize the knowledge they have to help their household in making informed decisions in the way they manage their money and use it? To what extent have they been able to also leverage the knowledge, like, again, one of the panelists said earlier on, to be able to make others understand and also be able to toe the same line and make sure that the benefits that they have acquired themselves, cascades and is also translated into the lives of others who may not be fortunate to have participated into the in the learning or in the learning journey that they have received. So I think that generally understanding that there has to be a baseline, and then you must have an end line, and also doing an impact survey to understand the realities on the ground to see what impacts are you making and how they are living it. It's important. I would just want to say that in our implementation as WFP, we have done one of those impact surveys, and we've seen that, so we had a control group, and we've seen that between those two groups that we had monitored and collected information and data on, we realized that those who had participated in these financial literacy trainings have a gain in terms of the usage of the knowledge increased by 12%. And for those who had not participated in any of those, we saw a dip in the way they manage their finances. So this is why we say that it is important for us to know the impact and then leverage on it more to be able to still drive the self-reliance agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And as you're talking about this, something was mentioned during the presentation about really trying to cater for people with specific needs. I would like to ask you, Millie, from what you have seen in your community, do you see that the financial literacy trainings that you have in the communities, are they catering for people with specific needs? And if not, what do you think can be done to improve? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say no, they are not part and partial, or the percentage of the persons with the special needs, when you see in terms of the financial literacy in our community as refugees, most of them are being left out. And it is our concern as leaders that they should also be brought on board, because when you see after the financial literacy training, most people have seen to it and they are doing it, that you definitely somebody will begin a small scale business at household level. But for our persons with special needs, most of them are outside. They only benefit on the one-time support that are being given to them by our partners within the settlement. Meaning if there is nothing for persons with the special needs, they will not benefit anything. And when it comes to that, meaning we should at least see into it and put it as a practice so that all of us are brought on board, because when you see on our pledge to the Global Refugee Forum come December this year, we have also, as the refugee community, we have pledged for self-reliance and resilience as the first pledge, meaning all of us have to be trained and all of us have to be included. So if it is inclusion, then our people of special needs have to be part and parcel of this training, so that when we are talking about self-reliance and resilience, they should also be part of that, and they should also benefit from the same training. So when things continue to be the way they are, they will also have a way of living a life with their families. Because you never know what will happen to the envelope again or to the basket. It may even reduce more, that we may not be able to support the persons with special needs, and if they are not trained, definitely they may not make it well.
Well, thank you so much, Millie, for sharing that context. I don't know, we are We have a few minutes left, but I don't know, Baptiste, if you can respond to how the minimum standards will address the needs of the specific needs, of people with specific needs, sorry.
Yes, thank you very much. This goes back to the targeting process. Who are we targeting? In the Graduating to Resilience, I bring our example and experience in the field. We target a woman. A woman is an entry point, but we target all the members in the household. We work with all the members in the household. So this person with special needs is a member of their household. If the woman is empowered, the whole member in the household is empowered. The next thing we do is that in a VSLA, the woman is a member of the VSLA. But during training, we invite the spouse and other elderly members in the household to attend the financial literacy training. That is how inclusive it is. And also, this now helps them. When they go back home, all of them participate in the development of their saving goals and taking part in achieving the target that they have together set. So maybe it is a question for all of us, so that even in our training manual, in the digital manual that is coming from Bank of Uganda, how specifically are we addressing the persons with specific needs? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And really, I like that you've closed with that it's a question, it's something that we all have to work on, really, to be inclusive. We have a few minutes, but I would like to hear just parting shots from you, Alex. I think, Baptiste, those were your final. You really had a nice call to action at the end. So we'll hear from you. 1 minute for you, Alex, 1 minute for you, Millie, and 1 minute for you, Aikins. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll just do a bit of what I like about these minimum standards is that it creates kind of harmonization, but more importantly, it has a component of measurement, which I think the last component is measurement. How do we measure the impact, or at least the outcome of the training? In our current framework, we've been struggling with how do we assess the impact of what we are doing. And one of the things that the Bank of Uganda did was to carry a financial capability survey, which we referred to as showing us being at 50.4%, including collecting data from the refugee community as well. We did do that. So I think impact is very important. Also aligning this training to your project objectives, as was mentioned in the presentation made by Maggie. I think that is very important, and that comes to the fact that what my colleague is saying about you need to be intentional. If you're looking at the special needs or special groups, you need to be intentional in what you're doing. Is it aligned to your project objectives? When we are doing our training of trainers and selecting, we normally look at about 70-30% in terms of gender, female and male. But we mostly get the male. So how more can we be intentional in terms of getting the trainers to train? Because the female normally less supply compared to the male. So when we now fall short of the numbers, we go into the male to fill up the gap. And we are trying to be intentional, but also we need to look at the target group. Lastly, I think for me what is important is coordination. Coordination is quite important, and this minimum standards brings together stakeholders that are in that space, including Bank of Uganda, and we are grateful for that.
Absolutely. And to you, Millie, in 1 minute, your parting shots, closing remarks.
Thank you once again. I want to say I will stand on my point of inclusion and uniformity. If we are to serve the persons we are serving, then we have to include everyone, putting interest on the persons with special needs and women, of course. And as we do that, we should also see after the training and after the VSLA which leads to the income generating activities that people normally do on their own. As you are done with the training, what next? You train, you give the saving box. After that one, what's the next thing that you should do as a partner who is supporting me to be self-reliant? Remember, that's already a pledge that is globally known from the refugee fraternity. Thank you so much and be blessed.
1 minute for you, Akins.
Thank you. So I would want to start with 3 C's. So I would say the first C is that we should be non-competitive in the way we implement the minimum standards or the financial literacy trainings. I think there is enough room for all of us to be able to work within the settlements to make sure that we make the required impacts that we want to make. The second C will be on collaboration, and the third C will be on coordination. But to sum it up, I think that as we have the standards, it will also be important for us to have elements of accountability. How do we make sure that the standards are being implemented as they are, the trainings, the quality, the desired results, we are getting them as we should. So I think that that is an element that we'll need to make some more investments into, and then also ensure that once people become accountable in terms of what they are doing within the settlements and what impacts they are driving, there should also be regular reports that can be shared within the community. That helps us all to be able to keep leveraging what we are doing and making sure that the impacts that we want to see, we see them and help our people in need to become self-reliant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you forget everything, don't forget the 3 C's. Thank you so much. We have, I know there are so many questions, and so I'll invite Matilda to lead us through the Q&A session. And yeah, let's keep the discussion going. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to our panelists and for the rich discussion. So there's a steady stream of questions coming in from our online audience and also from the room. So if you feel that you have a question, please don't forget to fill the small printed forms on the tables. So I'm going to start with the first round of questions. We're going to take 3 questions. The first one is, so I'm going to take 1 from the online audience and then 2 from the room. I will start with the room. I will start with Fiona from Capstone Action for All.
Thank you very much. My name is Fiona Nijena from Capstone Action for All, a refugee-led organization based in Nachi Valley, but on a small scale in Chakatu Refugee Settlement. I'm a refugee and I'm the executive director for the organization. My question is involving the LROs in this, the refugee-led organization. What is your view on this, since we are based in the communities and we know we've grown up there? I can say I became a refugee at the age of 6 months, so basically I don't need to read about the lives of refugees. I've lived it and I know the challenges they're going through. So I think it is best if we involve the LROs so that they can implement this on community level. I'm so grateful to the partners that have come up with this, because it's really good. You can have money and you don't know how to sustain it. Handouts are not sustainable and its effectiveness diminishes. Instead, it fosters the creation of dependent and fragile communities. So as we look into self-reliant goal, let's also think about involving these LROs and building their capacity to see that they disseminate this information to the communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiona. So the second question is from Anthony Mageni from CRS.
My name is Anthony Mageni. I work for CRS. I am seated in the Nairobi office, the regional office, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity. In terms of scaling up the FNLT, as you said, you're using the master trainer, training of trainer strategy. But I was wondering if you're also thinking about introducing this curricula within the skilling institutions, the TVETs, and also the high schools, just to reinforce the point you made that you're targeting 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds who are heads of households, because studies show that these are the ages where actually this is more impactful than the ages where we are more into the adulthood. So in terms of making this organic, are you also thinking about making this integrated into a more structured curricula within these skilling institutions? Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And then the last question is from Alain from
Alvin.
NSSF.
Hello, everyone. That wasn't part of the question. My name is Alvin Kawama. I work with the NSSF Strategy Department, Strategy and Innovations. I'm here with my colleague, Apollo Mboa. We sort of get crushed this party, but we're here and we love the conversation. We love the conversation about financial literacy that's going on because we are very central to that as well. My question is, at the beginning of 2022, we as NSSF, the National Social Security Fund, the law that governs us allowed for us to create shorter-term savings, not only the retirement savings. So as we're in the process of creating these savings, which are like 3 years, 5 years, and the like, we're looking at the different groups where these savings can come from. And we're also looking at the financial literacy. So we're asking a question, and this goes out to UNHCR, WFP, and a cash working group. How can we work together that as we are giving the help to these refugees, we're also creating some savings for them so that they can have their better resilience? Because this is a group we're already looking at, but how can we work together to actually ensure that? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have our 3 questions in the first round. So I'm going to administer the questions as I see fit. The first question related to the engagement of refugee-led organizations. Baptiste, do you have any thoughts on how we could scale that up?
Yes, thank you, Fiona. We have a number of refugee-led organizations in different settlements. In AFC, we have not worked closely with them. But how do we involve the refugee in the work we do? Our project is a 50-50% because it's a randomized control trial. So we have 70 community-based trainers. 35 come from the refugee. They are employed and fully employed. We also have 120 coaches. 60 come from the refugee. So the context is clear. We employ a refugee and a host community-based trainer and a coach so that they can better deliver the content based on the context, and they know the culture, they know their people. And that is the level we have reached. We don't directly deal with smaller CBOs as yet, but like you have said, it is important to have these refugee-led organizations. So that is the level for us to integrate, to bring the local context by employing the people from the community to do the activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to the next question, maybe Millie, if you have any advice to give on how we could better involve refugee-led organizations. From your perspective, what could we do better?
Thank you so much. I think that's a better idea because when you see we are now shifting from the main donation coming to implementing partners, but we are seeing a smaller group like the refugee-led organizations, most of them being CBOs, that's community-based organizations. And if they are part and parcel of that, definitely the refugees will always benefit, and the issue of crying day and night will not be there because they would be having how to stand on their own and do things the way it's expected to be done. And you will realize that for us as refugees, we have that slogan which says, anything for us without us is not for us. So if it is supposed to be for us, then we have to be part of that training so that we invest out of the training and make a living out of that training. Thank you.
Thank you, Millie. Okay, we're going to go to the next question that came from Anthony on how you can include the financial literacy in skilling institutions, in high school curricula, and so forth. I'm going to give that question to Alex.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anthony makes a very good suggestion or a comment on how do we integrate financial literacy in the mainstream, if I may use that word. It's not the first time we're getting such a comment. Even at Bank of Uganda level and the ministry, we are thinking of how best do we integrate financial literacy at the lower level. One of the things that was done under the first strategy for financial literacy was to integrate it in the lower secondary curriculum. So that step was already taken, where financial literacy, it cuts across the different subject areas in the lower secondary curriculum. We are right now in discussions with the National Curriculum Development Center on how best we could also bring that on board at the higher level. And if you will later look at the current strategy, the new upcoming strategy for financial literacy speaks to integrating financial literacy within the curriculum, including trying to bring it down to primary. How that will be done is what we'll discuss during detailed discussions about how to include it within the curriculum. So there is work in progress. We just need to keep moving forward as a team in ensuring that that is included. And that is only possible when we have all the relevant stakeholders in the same table. Thank you.
Thank you. We come back to one of the three C's, maybe, yeah, all three of them. So we're going to go to the last question of round one, which I'm going to give to Akins.
Okay, thank you. I think it is important as we even work towards self-reliance to make sure that we go beyond providing regular monthly food assistance to refugees. Because if that is the only channel we use, then most definitely we are never going to get to the goal of getting them to become self-reliant or even beginning to save. So what we do as the BFP, and I'm sure many other actors do as well, is that we've gone beyond just providing the monthly general food assistance, but also have programs within the settlements that gives opportunity to refugees to be able to become self-reliant. And mainly what we do is to make sure that we have livelihood and resilience programs that we implement within these settlements. We have income-generated generation activities that we work on. We have market linkages programs that we also work on to be able to ensure that for communities where there's a bit of production, either by only refugee-led associations or jointly with host community, we're able to help them to establish linkages to markets where they're able to sell those commodities to ensure that they have some continuous income beyond the regular monthly food assistance that they receive. But key also for us is the issue about mindset change. Because we've also seen that sometimes it's not because people cannot save, but it's because they think that their current situation defines them and does not give them the opportunity. So we've gone a step further to make sure that in our livelihood and resilience programs that we implement, that deliberate activity to ensure that we have refugee-led organizations that drive mindset change within the settlements and within the groups that we work with is there to help them showcase that if we can become self-reliant or we can make achievements and get a step further in our ability to provide for ourselves, then it's also possible with other members of the refugee community. So I think these activities would continue and will help us to be able to get the savings and even move beyond savings to go into micro and other big businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. And you added a fourth C, building confidence. So I think that marks the end of the first round of questions. we're going now to go into the second round of questions. So again, I'm going to start off, I'm going to take some questions from the room and then some from our online participants. I'm going to start off with Lawrence from CRS, who is online. Lawrence Akena. I'll read the question. So the question from Lawrence is as follows. Millie mentioned the important point of training together by partners without segregation. My question to Baptiste is how you will treat categorization based on common language while targeting participants as stipulated in the minimum standards. So I guess this is, I think we can hear from Baptiste, but then also we can have some recommendations from Millie.
Thank you, Lawrence. But if you've been attentive, I tried to bring this clear at the targeting level and also recruiting people from the same context. We have levels of trainings. The community-based trainers and the coaches undergo technical skills trainings. We select them from the community where they live, and having attained the skills, they take on the responsibility of rolling it down. And they are being monitored and supervised by the program officers. So we use, for training involving refugees, we have refugee coaches and community-based trainers so that they train it in the local language, they understand their community, and hence giving relevant examples so that they can, the participants can use the information in an appropriate manner.
Thank you, Baptiste. Millie, do you have anything to add on the language?
Okay, I want to say thank you again. Maybe my only appeal would be let the partners now strengthen that, because here we are not pulling ropes, we are trying to bring it together. So let's strengthen whatever we are doing so that all will benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Millie. The next question is, I'm also going to read it out, and it's very clearly directed to the Bank of Uganda. What is the Bank of Uganda doing to address access to national IDs to reduce financial exclusion? That's a big one.
That's an interesting and excellent question about what Bank of Uganda is doing for another authority outside of Bank of Uganda. I think I go back to issues around, when you talk about access to finance, you may think it's only the role of Bank of Uganda. Other sister government agencies will bring on board a law that restricts access. I'll go back to when we used to provide as basic KYCs. You could bring a letter from ULC to be able to open a bank account. Then came on board a law that says the only identification required to access, that is after the NIRA, the National Identification and Registration Authority Act came on board. The only form of identification required is the national ID for you to access a government service, including financial service. Now that took us kind of back, because I could go with my ID, either a work ID and a few evidence of my utility bills, and I'm able to access financial service. Now that took us back, and yet NIRA was just beginning to issue national ID, and it has been a process. Now the question is, what is Bank of Uganda doing? And I'll go back to the framework for national financial inclusion, where you bring on board all the stakeholders. NIRA is part of the implementing partners under the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. What we've done to make them come even closer and understand the issue at hand is to make them part of the governance structure, that is the steering committee, so that they understand that the issue around access actually lies in lack of access to the national ID for the population that does not have. But I think NIRA has done a lot as well. Nowadays, we are beginning to register even school-going children, that it would be much easier for them to access the national ID. We are thinking on our side is that, can they have clinics? What I mean is that registration clinics, you go to the population, because you wouldn't expect my grandmother to move 70 kilometers to go for a national identification. Can we take NIRA closer to them? But these discussions are ongoing. I think to answer is that we need to continuously engage NIRA. And Bank of Uganda will do that together with other stakeholders. And I think we'll move forward in the second strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. You have pinpointed a gap in our guest list. So we should have had someone from NIRA in the room. Point taken. Baptiste, you signaled that you wanted maybe to add something to that. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. In the first cohort of this activity, we were registering participants for SIM cards. And the requirement was national ID or refugee identification. We realized a number of people did not have national IDs or even the refugee identification. In Kamwenge, we did advocacy and telling people to do the registration. But in one of our activities for registering for birth certificate, we collaborated with NIRA so that we facilitated their staff to go in Changwali and do that mass registration of the children. So there is need for collaboration, and where possible, bring the services nearer to the people.
Thank you. So the last question of round 2 is actually a question for Margaret. It's from Bindi. Yeah, to Margaret.
Thank you. My name is Bindi. I'm from Grameen Foundation. And this question is for Margaret or any of the stakeholders here. First, let me commend you for developing these minimum standards. I think it's an excellent idea. And then, so the question I have is, how can these standards relate to the wide variety of financial education training that all of the different partners in the room, private sector and NGOs, are doing? And I'll give an example. So, for example, we do financial linkages, a lot of financial linkages trainings. And I was just recently revising our linkage banking training, and I wanted to follow the financial literacy minimum standards and align. And what I found was there were so many required topics in the minimum standards that weren't directly relevant to the objective of financial linkages. And I felt if I go through all of these different topics, the people I'm training won't remember the key things that I want to really focus on. And they won't be available for the number of weeks that is required to go through all these different topics. So my assumption is that not every training needs to have 8 weeks and go through all these topics, but how do the standards relate to every financial education training we do? So that's one question. I don't know if I can add in a second question. The other question is shorter. So how are we integrating gender into these minimum standards, especially around household decision-making between men and women, and ensuring that that men aren't taking women's money, so it's difficult for the women to manage their money?
Thank you, Bindi. I think we will go to Margaret, and then if anyone else would like to chip in, please let me know.
Okay, thank you so much. I hear you, where you're coming from. And the reason as to why we came up with the minimum standards, it's actually the question you first asked. As the panelists mentioned, that the refugees actually need beyond, you talked about financial linkages. For example, if you're to do a financial linkage, then this participant should have walked a journey until a stage when you are going to do a financial linkage, which is good if you have a project that is actually aiming at linking these participants to form of financial services. But the minimum standards stipulate if you have to certify someone as trained, so that if another partner comes to target, I can skip this person and say, if RVC already trained this person, I do not need to duplicate because they have met the quality standards of the financial literacy trainings. So the minimum standards is about meeting the quality standards to qualify someone as trained, and one of them is to avoid duplication. Then at the end of it all partners, for example, in the refugee space, we can end up saying 100% of the refugees have been trained in financial literacy because we have a benchmark. So as the Bank of Uganda colleague mentioned, that we need to know if you're covering a small component, then we do not expect you to certify these participants. We should leave them with a space so that other partners can fill the gap. Then the other one is around integrating gender. It's very key, and I think it was included in a presentation, just that this was kind of high level, a snapshot. But when you get the real minimum standards, there is a component of gender inclusion, which talks about involving both men and women. Because of the decision-making abilities at household level, a man cannot make a decision alone, leaving a woman behind, and then also the consideration of other household dynamics. So gender inclusion is key, and of course we can't leave women behind, and neither can we leave men behind, so we need to strike a balance around that. But I will leave the panelists to add, and with the rich experience in financial literacy. Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret. Alex?
When we developed this, the first strategy for financial literacy and the different tools therein in the past over a decade ago, I think most stakeholders have referenced their interventions based on the available literature developed by Bank of Uganda under the Strategy for Financial Literacy 1. If I look at these minimum standards, it's not so different. And if I've seen the stakeholders that have approached Bank of Uganda, especially relating to financial literacy, most of them are the same. So at least for me, I'm about 80 to 90% convinced that it may not be very different. And this minimum standard is just a starting point for other interventions like what Margaret said. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think on that note, that this is only a starting point, just the beginning of something bigger. We have to conclude our roundtable discussion and our event. I will wrap up and Alex will close. So just a few, just a few ideas that I'm going to take away with me, and as we go back to the cash working group and see how we will define our rollout plan. The minimum standards are not there for you to, it's there for you, you can do more, but you can't do less, let's put it that way. They're not restrictive, you can use them as you wish, you can use your own curricula, but don't do less than what is stipulated in this document. Secondly, we need to be better at including refugee-led organizations and refugees. Millie, you said it well. Most people are trained, they're not selfish with their knowledge. They also keep training more organically what they keep training their fellow community members what they have learned. So let's also capitalize on that. I liked what you said, Aikens, leverage, layer and scale up, and so that we can actually do better, we can save money, and we can have more and better harmonized interventions when it comes to financial literacy. And then, of course, we have the actors in the collaboration and the actors in the actors who are not present in the room but should be part of this conversation going forward, like the NERA, or there might be other entities. So I think those were my main takeaways. Of course, there's a long list of questions, and we could only take a few of them, but there will be an FAQ document that will be circulated afterwards so that you can get a response to the questions that you asked. So I'm going to hand over to Alex for just a few closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I've been given the task that normally civil servants enjoy, wrapping up and saying the event is closed. Let me observe all the protocol that we went through at the start, and thank each and everyone for for joining this important event. When we were working on the minimum standards, the back and forth, I kept asking myself how the day would be on the day when we're launching these minimum standards. I want to thank the team, Matilda, Julie, and the rest for really working tirelessly to ensure that this event is a success. I look at it as a starting point. We have a document, which is normally easy to have, but how do you translate that into action? I think that's the most critical part now. We are excited to launch a minimum standards, but how do we make use of the minimum standards in a way that it will impact the refugee community? I now see a bigger task in the implementation, and one of the things that I would propose we take beyond just the minimum standards is to develop the necessary tools for implementation. What kind of presentations are we going to be making? For example, when we're talking about personal financial management, are we going to disseminate consistent information? Is the information updated given the current environment, or will allow each implementing partner just say, I'm talking about personal financial management? Will that integrate, for example, gender when you're talking about decision making at the household level? So I see as if the team still has a big task to harmonize the tools that will be used to implement the minimum standards. I also feel that it's important for us to continue with this kind of coordination. On the side of the bank, we are, like I said, there were two things we're going to do. We are launching the National Financial Inclusion Strategy in the coming week on Thursday. And one of the objectives, and that will be a working group, is financial consumer empowerment or financial consumer protection and financial literacy as one of the key objectives, and therefore will be a pillar. It's our hope that the cash working group will be represented on that particular working group to bring the views of the humanitarian partners in that particular working group, but also more importantly, to join us in developing the third strategy for financial literacy that should take care of the refugees in Uganda. I wish to conclude once again by thanking you for coming this morning, keeping time. Those that are online, we shouldn't take a lot of your time. And I pray that we come back here maybe 1 year later to see how far we've gone with implementing the minimum standards. I thank you all. And I declare the event closed.